Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another random review. My last couple of random reviews have been the late 50s, so let's come nearer the current year that we are living in. This is from 1969, and this is Prague Nights, co-directed by Jiří Brika and Milo Makovic. Again, that will not be the proper pronunciations. This is a Deaf Crocodile release, number 12. They're a partner of Vinegar Syndrome. Now, I'm not really that into Vinegar Syndrome. I think I have one Vinegar Syndrome title, maybe two, and one of them's a Christopher Walken. But Deaf Crocodile do seem like quite an intriguing label. Vinegar Syndrome still have their sale going, so I might actually partake on a few more Deaf Crocodiles. So as with all or most Vinegar Syndrome releases or associates, you have the slipcover, the hard slipcover that everybody seems to go mad for, and then you actually have the Blu-ray disc. This actually has a couple of short films as well, and a booklet and an interview with the daughter of Jiří Brika. Again, not his proper name. So this is a anthology film. It's a portmanteau film. You could argue it's kind of like a Czech Amicus film, but there's a lot going on. It's an absolute delight if you're into your dark fantasy tales. It's, I guess, a bit of Bava, a bit of Jan Swijemaker, obviously he came later, a bit of Phantom Carriage, Victor Sonnström, but it's absolutely wonderful. So there's, as with most anthology films or portmanteau films, there's a wraparound story where we're introduced to a businessman in 60s Prague called Willy Fabricus. That is actually his name, apparently. And he's a businessman who's going to sign an important contract in the morning, but he would quite like to see the sights of Prague, and more specifically, he does seem to be a little bit randy. So he tries it on with the receptionist in his hotel, and then he comes across this woman that he meets outside a graveyard, as you do, exactly on the stroke of midnight. And most people would be a little bit wary of an attractive woman, or any woman that you met outside a graveyard at midnight, but not Willy Fabricus, because she does seem to show an interest in him, and he's been rejected in all the other women that he's met in Prague. So she takes him to the graveyard, and does seem to be keen for him to kiss him, but she's fairly hot and cold, and she says she wants to tell him some stories, and what better place to tell some stories than in a graveyard. I should say this introductory scene kind of starts in black and white, and then when they get to the graveyard, it goes full Mario Bava, and we get a greenish hue to the action. She has a lovely car driven by a pestering chauffeur, and she asks him to lie down in the graveyard, and she points out a couple of gravestones that leads her to the first story about a rabbi, an emperor, and a golem. Sounds like a bad joke. A rabbi, an emperor, and a golem all walk into a pub. And then we go full colour. So each of the stories has a full colour. and the wraparound has different colours of its own. But we meet this emperor who seems a bit of a dandy, perhaps. And we're introduced to the rabbi that once raised a golem, or a creature of stone. It was the famous silent film Der Golem, which Eureka released in Blu-ray, which most of us probably have. But he raised the golem to protect the community against their enemy, but the emperor wants him to create another golem just for selfish reasons, and he refuses to do that. But he has another rabbi who's more interested in money, and he's going to create or bring to life another golem, and the rabbi is not very happy about this. And a battle of rabbi wills ensues. There's some wonderful camera work in all three, on the whole film basically, but some really nice use of axial cuts in this first episode. The production design in the film is gorgeous as well. Again, I'm not going to give away too much. So that's the first story. I mean, none of these stories are going to be like stunning shockers at the end for people that have seen enough portmanteau films and anthology films. But again, because this is Czech, there's a definite kind of oddness and darkness and creepiness to a lot of these stories, or how these familiar stories are told. And then the Willy Fabricus wants to get the mysterious woman back to his hotel room. So they sneak away from the chauffeur, and he takes her to his hotel room, and this sequence is shot in sepia. And again, they have a little bit of a dance, and this reminds her of a story about a countess. So again, we're back to full colour, full lush production design about this rather vacuous countess. It's clear that where she's living is struggling with poverty. There's a little boy that steals bread from her kitchen, and she's invited to this ball, and she says that she wants shoes made out of bread, which is obviously pretty poor taste considering the climate, but she doesn't really seem to care. Her and her maid Mitzi have an interesting relationship. She also has a dog called Satan, which is interesting, but she's pretty delusional about the world outside. But then a cobbler comes to measure her feet, to give her some amazing shoes and an amazing dress, and she wants a wonderful mask for the ball. But it turns out the cobbler isn't who he says he is, and she does end up going to a ball, but it's perhaps a different kind of ball than what she thought. And again, this segment is just wonderful, some creepy imagery in it, and just altogether fabulous. It's a bit of Cinderella, it's a bit of Faust, but it's all Czech strangeness. And then the third part, the kind of surrounding story is now in black and white, with Willy Fabricus and the strange woman, and they're now getting to the stage of being in bed, and the strange woman tells him the story, which is actually played out as a song, so there's no dialogue. It's just this little ballad of essentially a Black Widow character and a minstrel who run an inn, and men come in, quite a lot of rich men, jewellery and lots of possessions, and they fall under the spell of this Black Widow, and she kills them in various manners, and they rob the corpses and throw the corpses down a hole in the floor. Oh, it's wonderful. It's heartwarming. Until another stranger appears. And then we have the end of the wraparound story, which again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but this is just such a joy. It's 99 minutes. Absolutely flies by. There's actually a few nice special features. There's a new interview with Czech film critic, as I say, and screenwriter Teresa Berkova, on her father Jiří Břecha, which is 45 minutes long, and there's a commentary with her and Czech film expert Irina Kovarova. That is Kovarova, of Comeback Company, and there's two of his short films, Pomsta, or Revenge, from 1964, which is 14 minutes, which is good, and There Was a Miller on the River from 1971, which is 11 minutes, which is absolutely fantastic. That's the moving story of a soldier who comes back from the war after 20 years, and his parents don't recognise him, with hilarious consequences. And there's an essay by Brzezka's daughter as well in the booklet. So it's an absolutely wonderful little film. Again, if you love anthology films, if you love films with a little sting in the tail, it's an absolutely gorgeous film. The restoration's beautiful. Again, there's lots of camera tricks that are beautifully done, and again, the production design is really good, the music's really good, and it's just an absolute blast if you're into such films. Again, this is Deaf Crocodile number 12. Yes, they're numbered. And again, I may have to just accidentally peruse a little more of them. They are quite expensive on eBay, but as I say, Vinegar Syndrome has a sale on at the moment, and they're included in the sale, and they're probably about a third of the price that you'll get them, or a third off of the price that you'll get them on eBay. But yeah, certainly an interesting label, and certainly more interesting to me, at least. I know there's huge fans of Vinegar Syndrome out there, but this kind of thing is far more interesting to me than the usual Vinegar Syndrome fare. So I may have to check out some more Deaf Crocodile. So thanks very much for watching this fairly random review of Prague Nights. Please let me know in the comments if you've seen it and what you thought of it, and hopefully you'll join me again for more random reviews. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.